Good evening. Welcome to the Nahant Public School Committee meeting for Tuesday, June 25th, 2019, and the time is 7:10. We'll start with a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Moving on to reading and approval of the minutes from the June 11th, 2019 meeting. These were sent last week.
I'm happy to make a motion to approve the minutes from the school committee meeting dated June 11th, 2019.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
I abstained from approval because I was absent.
Thank you, Lori. That is correct. And the chair votes aye. Moving on to correspondence and community input. Does anyone have any correspondence and community input? No?
Old business or?
Oh, yeah, old business, so, okay. No one else? Okay. Examination and authorization for payment of bills. New business. Is this all finished?
Complete.
Complete, great. 3 signatures, perfect. Okay, moving on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Parentozzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, we had a great end of the school year, as everyone knows, and I want to thank all of our faculty and our staff and our principal and you, of course, the school committee, for setting the tone. It was a wonderful end of a really good year. This is the first year in a lot of our memories when we weren't going to school into the high 20s in June because of weather and storms, and it's really nice to have the school year more compact. And just as in an academic comment, those last 2 weeks of June are of questionable academic value. We try to make them important. We try to do projects, but when you have those days throughout, spread throughout the year where they're supposed to be, it's much more effective academically. So the first thing I would like to do is give you an update on the current year's budget. So 2019 budget, which the school committee unanimously approved a year ago, is in really good shape. As you know, we had a couple of breaks financially due to projected costs for out-of-district students and transportation and support that did not materialize. Therefore, our special education transportation budget was underspent significantly. That money is earmarked by the town. That's not in our, quote, general expenditures. So whatever we don't spend in special education funds, we must return to the town for the reserve fund. So prior to town meeting, I returned $30,000 to have the finance committee use that as an offset for some expenses in the fiscal 20 budget. And we are going to be returning another $61,675 for obviously a total of $91,675 worth of unspent special education transportation funds. I think it behooves us to discuss briefly why that's possible. Our general education transportation is a contract. We know how many buses we have. We know when they're going to come, and we know what the cost is going to be. So the budget has the exact number in it. Our special education transportation is under the control of the individual education plan committee. Not the principal, not the superintendent, not the school committee. So what we do in a special education transportation contract, we have the cost of a bus per day, the cost of a van per day, the cost of a monitor per day. And then we look, when I build the zero-based budget in the spring of the year before, we look at the IEPs we have in place, and we cost that out. If a student who would need daily transportation and a monitor, for example, at the cost of in excess of $300 a day, chooses another educational alternative or doesn't need that any longer for a variety of reasons that could happen, then that money is in the budget. We're not going to spend it. That's going to go back to the town. And that's how that happens. That's how you miss by $91,000. It's not bad budgeting. Actually, what's happening over the last 3 years to our special education expenditures, they've been going down every year. As our general education skill sets and support and our inclusion gets more widespread, we're spending fewer dollars of the taxpayers' money on high-cost students. And the easiest way to tell that is we used to get a check from the state for special education expenditures in excess of a certain amount of dollars, and that used to be about $100,000. We only spent $39,000 in last year, so our circuit breaker check from the state, by the way, that's not one check, it's distributed quarterly, won't even be $30,000. So that shows that we're just not spending the money. So the question sometimes arises in some people's minds, well, wouldn't it be better to spend the money and get the state money? No, because there's a huge gap. First of all, the district is responsible for in excess of the first $40,000 and at least 30% of every dollar above that. So it's much better to keep our students home. It's also better for our students to go to school locally. That's what's great about local schools. So the good news is that we have an excess in 17 accounts, even after the transfers that you'll see later at your table to approve. So we're doing some things, which I'll explain in a moment, and paying for them with current year's funds, and we're still going to be able to return in excess of $40,000 for the reserve fund. So if you add up the 91 and the 40, that's $130,000, give or take a few dollars. The reason I can't give you exact figures today is we're still buying. We still have invoices that are coming in for things we did buy. Over the last week, I've asked for 4 different vendors to hurry up with their invoices. And several of those you see in the bills this evening. So good news is we're under budget. We've had an efficient year in terms of expenditures, and we can get some things that we have been wanting to get, which I'll begin talking about immediately, Madam Chair, unless there's questions.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So today, Amante Inc. completed the installation of 2 new split HVAC units, one in the library and one in the server room. The reason we need 2 is because the way the room is built, if you think about walking down the ramp to the library, the server room is the door right in front of you, then you turn left and go around the double corner, before you actually hit the second unit. So that cold air would never get to the server, and of course, that's what's most important to keep cool. So the two split units have been installed. They are functioning. They finished up around noon today. That bill for $20,800 is in the bill rolls, so we're paying that with current year's funds. The gym porch roof has been completed. That had the original roofing on it from when the gym was built. For $3,000, we got a new roof, and we also got the back side of the gym, all the drain downspouts replaced, because that was pouring over the broken drains and going against the brick wall and actually coming inside the building a little bit. So that's done, and I want to thank Castle, AC Castle, for doing that very quickly. And I have put at your places a calendar of next year's school year, and on the back of that is a list of the school committee meetings that you approved. Both of those documents are ones you have approved. And I want to thank everybody for a wonderful 2018-2019 school year. It was a year in which our students got a really good education. It's a school, so young people sometimes make instantaneous emotional decisions and cause issues with other children and with adults, but by and large, it was a really good year for the Johnson Elementary School, and we look forward to next year being even better. Continuous improvement is our goal. So thank you to the staff, to the faculty, to the parents and guardians, and of course the community and the school committee for all your wonderful support. And the last thing I'd like to say is a really heartfelt goodbye to Ted Cronin. This Friday will be Ted's last day. He has served the community and the children extremely well. I know several of you have seen that marvelous poster that the faculty, the staff, and the students made with all the pictures of Ted with the kids and with the faculty. He's been terrific. We have a replacement, but as you know, initially somebody who has had the emotional heartbeat of the school, like your daily custodian, can't be replaced. Someone will come in and do the job and make their own mark. So it's not really a replacement. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Okay, moving on to the principal's report. Mr. Andrews.
Well, Mr. Parentowski, that's certainly a hard act to follow, as always. I'd like to also thank my colleagues and the superintendent as well for his leadership at the school and working with you all as a school committee. I really thought this year was challenging and fun and an opportunity to learn all at the same time. In my report, I'd like to highlight a few different areas and give you some information about what we'll be doing in the building over the summer. First, just because the kids are out doesn't mean we stop learning. So I'll be learning about the Jognog online program, and this is basically something that's going to let teachers access previewed short videos to use with their classes by topic. So they want to do something about the water cycle, boom, there's 6 videos to choose from, and then Jognog makes a quiz around those. And so it's an easy way to use those LCD projectors and those screens that we have in our classrooms for something more than projecting still images. We know that vibrant content is so engaging for kids. And so it's a way to easily access videos that have been previewed. So we're going to be working with an MIT student over, next year in a study to see the effect of Jognog on our students' academic learning. So I'll be looking at that and thinking about how that's going to be rolled out over the summer and talking with the student about that. Her name's Abigail. And then we have 2 teachers and 3 teachers, 4th, 5th, and 6th grader teachers, Ms. Thibault, Ms. Kobus, and Ms. Shanahan, who are going to be going to training on Fontes Pinel, the Fontes Pinel classroom program. They'll be adopting that same textbook series that we had, or not textbook series, really literature collection, I should say, in the coming school year, and we're really looking forward to that, and I want to thank you all for supporting that move to that program. Really looking forward to seeing how they adopt it. I know that teachers in grades K to 3 really appreciated having it last year, and we heard great things about it. Over the summer, we'll be working on several projects. I'll be revising the family handbook, as I always do, with new information on laws and regulations. In the same way, I'll be updating the staff handbook, which still has to be adopted by the Nahant Teachers Association, but I'm hoping in this current school year it will be. And I've been working with our nurse, Cheryl Delicio, on training new staff members on all of our procedures and making sure that beyond the first day of the school year meeting, when we have new staff that are indoctrinated throughout the school year, they get all that same information. So, and really trying to formalize how we do that. So over the summer, I'll be working with her online, developing slides with that, making sure all of our information is comprehensive in one location so that that person doesn't have to necessarily visit 4 different people and find that information out, and then we have it together in one location. And then we're also looking forward to getting the new iMacs that are going to be hopefully coming in over the summer and installing them and getting them up to date with all the software that we use in the school. So lots to keep busy over the summer. In the area community outreach, the day after the students got out, we had a volunteer work day, which was quite successful. We had several residents from Nahant come out: Peter Rogal, Charles Lockwood, Charles Scapins, and Diana Brandy, along with several parents and kids came. We probably had 15 students and parents all together installing a shade garden of native plants. We worked all day, covered the blueberry bushes, the raspberry bushes that we put up on the slope. Those are right outside the kindergarten and first grade classroom. We have an apple tree that's going to be right outside of K&1, and it's flat against the wall so they can see the blossoms develop. So that's going ahead smoothly. And I'm really pleased to announce that we do not plan on sending home the forms where you have to write down the same address and phone number that you have had for the past 5 years. So some of the information you'll see is similar, but this year instead, I've been meeting with Charles Lockwood, our tech support, Sherry April, Chris Katzos, to talk about how can we use our student database to tell the parents what we have and is it accurate. And so that at least information is our starting point. Medical information, we're still going to ask you about allergies. Those things, we don't want to assume that you're at have the same allergy information every year, but address will assume unless you mark it otherwise, and it'll be listed what we have in our computer, as well as contact information. And then in July, I wanted to highlight the events that are happening with the library. This year, we're really trying to promote the reading program the library has as our summer reading program. It makes sense for a small town, and where I can meet with Sharon, the director, talk about the program, promote it in our school. So her and I teamed up before school got out. The theme is outer space. They have a number of events starting July 8th with Frisbee Dogs at Flash Park. There's an outer space play date on July 10th. And on July 24th at 10 o'clock at Flash Road, there's going to be a science demonstration. So I think students really like to see that. And the idea there is to connect to outer space. And so read something that gets you outside of your own world. So I encourage everyone to read over the summer. Thank you for your time, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Any questions? Anyone? Oh, I have one. I'm sorry.
Please.
In terms of the school staff handbook, what needs to be done to get the Teachers Association to review and approve it? It's kind of been in the works for a long time.
I guess I'll take that, Madam Chair, through you to the school committee. I would continue to remind the elected representatives of the NTA. My understanding is that the NTA is ready, willing, and able to move forward, but the Massachusetts Teachers Association would like a thorough review by their legal department, I believe, and that's taking a significant amount of time. But I will make sure that I bring that up once again.
Okay. Great, okay. Moving on to old business and other pending matters.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first thing is, in your packet, you see a picture that looks an awful lot like geometry and calculus. So I am going to turn it over to our academic leader, Mr. Andrews, to explain it. It's also in color, so it's hard to miss.
Well, I wanted everyone to get all the details they could. It's item 7A in your packet. And it took me some time to figure out, well, we got our slide in, and it was sitting on the side of the building, and everyone thought that it was missing a section or it was only half the slide. And I thought the same thing. And what I learned was that we have a 25-foot long hill, which I know that, and that's the natural slope of our hill, is 25 feet long. And I also knew that the slide had to be at a 35-degree angle. What I didn't realize is that when you turn the angle up to 35 degrees and try to meet it at the same elevation as it was before, you only get 16 feet. So we have a 16-foot slide. I ordered a slide designed for a 9-foot drop, a 9-foot vertical drop. I'm not paying attention to the vertical drop when I order a slide. I want to know how long the ride is. And so I'm thinking, okay, 25-foot slide, 9-foot drop, here we go, and shows up with a 16-foot slide. So we have a couple options that I'm going to look at. First thing I want to let you notice, though, is that the top picture, that whole space under those 2x4s, I got two 16-foot 2x4s, that space under there has to be filled with soil to make this slide even work, the one that we have. And so it's going to be challenging, but we have the fill there. And to get that steepness that we need, we have to add soil under the 2x4s. If we were going to try to make it longer, we would need to add more soil than that even. Mr. Rogal. Mr. Rogal, you just missed it. I mentioned you. I did.
I like Slim Jims.
So we have 3 diagrams. The middle diagram is where we are right now. I think it would be a great slide to put in. That's how it's designed. It's going to be nice and steep, but it won't be 25 feet. It's going to be 16 feet, which actually, once you put it on the hill, it doesn't look so short. Once it's in pieces on the side, it looks small, but on the hill at that steep angle, I think it's going to be fun. But I do want to talk to a contractor about, can we add material further, and should we really try to make the hill higher than it even is? So if we brought the elevation from 9 feet off the ground, we added, say, 3 feet and made a 3-foot hill or a 4-foot hill behind the kindergarten classroom, then the kids would go up and then down. So that's how we could get to a longer slide. So Mr. Lockwood and I put together that little rig that you see there. So tell your kids to be careful, don't go out back. We put caution tape around it, so it's all safe. But I thought it would be helpful when trying to figure out, trying to determine our next steps.
Is there any way you can exchange the slide?
Well, what we really want to do is, I want at least a 16-foot slide. You know, it's not that it's the wrong slide, it's that the earth isn't shaped right.
Right.
So, so I want to exchange the hill.
Yeah.
Right.
Madam Chair, I think when Mr. Andrews was explaining this to me, the element that was missing in my mind that he explained to me was the tilt of the slide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You obviously can lay the slide down on the hill and make it 25 feet long. The problem is it's going to be so shallow a pitch
It's gonna be flat.
that the kids won't even enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right.
It won't be a slide, or it'll be a hunch along.
Stuck halfway down.
Yeah.
Unless we oiled it or something.
So the other possibility is to build a platform,
Yeah.
right, at the top of the hill, so the kids have to, if you think about how you do it in a playground,
Yeah.
in an urban area, you climb up to go down.
Yeah.
So we could do that here, too.
Sure.
So that's one of the options. The third possibility is to take a little bit of dirt from the bottom of the hill, dig it out, and move it to the top of the hill to get the appropriate slide. So all that'll be worked out by a mathematician or a landscaper, which it could be the same thing.
It's actually a great application of
Yes.
middle school geometry. I mean, it's
I was
really
going to say
neat.
trigonometry, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, it's great for the students. I hope they tackle it in the fall.
Like having flashbacks.
But if you haven't been back there, every week the Forest Playground looks better and better.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think the poison ivy is now a distant memory.
It is. It is. Yeah, when we had the students out there working, they did a great job, and they were safe, and everyone had a great time.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next is preschool registration update.
So in your packets, Madam Chair, I labeled item 7B, which is right after 7A. You see a box which shows the current preschool enrollment as of 6/20, which was 5 days ago. So we have 6 students enrolled for Tuesday and Thursday. We have 11 students enrolled for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And we have 15 students enrolled for 5 days per week, Monday through Friday. So what that means is, right now, we would have 2 teachers on duty Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, split the group into 2. We would have 1 section of students with a teacher and a paraprofessional on Tuesdays and Thursdays. If we get an influx of students, that may have to change, and we may have to go to 2 teachers every day. But right now, we are in control of the circumstances. The financial math right now doesn't look good in terms of, with the current enrollment, having 2 teachers for 5 days. That means we would lose money. So that's a factor, not the primary factor. Obviously, we're educators. The primary factor is making sure students are A, safe, and B, get a great experience.
That means at most on the day when there's only 1 teacher, there would be currently 21 children, because we'd have 6 plus 15 on Tuesdays and
that's
Thursdays.
correct.
So that
Yep.
would be with 1 teacher and 1 para.
That's
So
correct.
2 adults.
2 adults.
That's right.
We wouldn't have a second, if you don't mind.
No.
We wouldn't have a second teacher on that day either for that para to go to. So
Right.
it would be a para and a teacher, always with those students, and not looking to go anywhere.
And on the other days, we would have 2 teachers, and the para would go between the 2 groups as needed.
Or the paraprofessional would be assigned elsewhere in the building. With 2 teachers and with 26 students, that's a 13-to-1 ratio.
Okay. Yeah.
That's really a great ratio.
And that para could be shifted elsewhere in the
Yeah.
building. Okay.
And these are 3 and 4-year-olds, right? Just refreshing my memory.
3, 4, and 5.
5 that didn't meet the cutoff. or-
5-year-olds who are, that's right, they don't, they,
Right,
that's correct.
okay.
Okay, and I will continue to keep this updated, and certainly, if any parents have any questions, they can contact Mr. Andrews or myself, and I will continue to update the numbers, and if they change, then our perception on how to address the needs and the staffing will change.
Is this more than it's been for the recent past? It seems like
It's-
it's growing, the number of,
Been up a couple, I think. It's been-
Yeah, it's higher than the last 2 years. I think 3 years ago, we had over 30.
I think we're usually in the mid to upper 20s, I think.
Yeah.
okay, great. So, next order of business is request for transfer of funds. The parents have.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your packet, you have an item labeled 7C, There are 16 line items there. This transfer sheet is a requirement because we have money in the account on your left, and we need money to zero out the line item on the account on your right. So as an example, we have more money than we need in the superintendent's office supplies, and we need money in the superintendent's office salaries. So we're going to transfer $114.74. Before I answer any of your questions, Madam Chair, if I may take a moment, I just want to thank Chris Katzos, who has done a remarkable job. I was trying to think of a game that is similar to what we do to have this all come out at the end, because you're taking from A and giving to B, but you don't want to give too much to B, because then you don't have then that B has too much money in it. So you got to work backwards, and I couldn't think of one. It's kind of like numerical Yahtzee or something.
It's like fathering twins.
Yeah. Is that what it is? Okay. So, but really, Chris does a great job. The taxpayers of Nahant can be assured that we are frugal. We spend money appropriately. We spend money where we need to spend it. And when we have money that we don't need to spend, like this year, we return it to the reserve fund. And the good news is that regardless of which way it goes, there's a tremendous sense of accuracy always about the budget with Chris in charge. So I would respectfully suggest that I would, Madam Chair, through you and your office, answer any questions about any of these line items, but request for the transfer $52,855.62 as detailed on these lines, these 16 lines.
I'll make a motion to accept a transfer request of $52,855.62 based upon the ledger that we have in front of us.
I second the motion.
Okay. I just have one question.
Of course.
Just the item that's being transferred from student body activities services. This is simply a question, but is that money that's raised by the student body, or is it money that's in our budget allocated to the student body then being shifted just office to office?
Madam Chair, that's an outstanding question. We never transfer money from revolving accounts. That money rolls from year to year.
Great.
The only limitation in a revolving account that the school committee members need to be aware of is our circuit breaker funds. Even though that's a revolving account, Mass General Law requires us to spend it or return it after 2 years. So once again, another complication. If you get, I'm going to make all the numbers the same. If we get $10,000 in year one from the state for circuit breaker, then we spend that $10,000 in year two, and the money we get in year two, we spend in year three. If we don't spend all of year one's money in year two, we can spend it in year three, but if we don't spend it at the end of year three, it has to be returned. All the other revolving accounts, the money just continuously revolves. It stays in there. So this transfer would be from a line item about student body activities. We don't, by the way, we don't label these. The state gives all these names, which is why it's probably a little more confusing than if we did it locally. That would be for a club that we didn't have this year, as an example. Okay.
Thank you.
Roll call vote, Mr. Flynn? Aye. Ms. Valentine?
Aye.
Ms. Sherlock?
Aye.
Mr. Tria?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Moving on to new business. First thing we have on here is the superintendent's evaluation. So I will just summarize our evaluation. Mr. Parentazzi, overall, we've found you to be exemplary, as we did last year. We continue to do so. Just a little summary, being employed part-time, we feel you have a full-time perspective and that you're on the pulse of things that are going on here. So we don't feel like we lose you on the other days, but you actually are very well on top of things. You're clear to the point, and you support the staff and the principal as he grows into the position. You are accessible. We appreciate your educational leadership, your ability to find grants, to communicate with the town. Your fiscal responsibility is clear and much appreciated by us on the committee, and I'm sure others in the town. I am speaking for them. And we know that the positive working relationship that you have developed with the town leadership has resulted in well-earned trust, and I think that's benefited the school community as a whole, for sure. We continue to move forward implementing technology and STEAM under your direction, and I just want to say it's a pleasure to work with you. And we appreciate your time, energy, and dedication.
Thank you very much for your generous words, Madam Chair. It is a pleasure to work in Nahant. It's a pleasure to work for you and for the community, for the parents and guardians, on behalf of the children. Ours is an interesting business because our customer and our client are two different groups of people. It's really interesting when you think about it. Not unlike a pediatrician, I would guess, right? Or pediatrics in general, right, where you answer questions to adults appropriately, but you actually do your work with minors. And it's a great challenge. I've said throughout my life that our country, whatever shortcomings some people think it has, what we do with education in our country is unparalleled in the world. It doesn't matter. I was born into a home that was basically illiterate. My father could not read or write, and I'm a superintendent of schools, first-generation American. There's a meritocracy in America that is quite remarkable, and I just hope we don't lose it, because it's one of the best things about us. The harder you work, the better things happen. And it's a pleasure to be in a community that I think people recognize that, respect it, and live it. So thank you so much for all your support. And thank you for the dedication you give to the children and to the community, all your volunteer hours. You note that, I'm part-time, but I'm on call a lot. And that's okay. At least I get paid something. Unlike you, you're on call all the time. And you do it because you have a great social conscience and you care for this community and for its children so deeply. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Anyone else have any comments or?
I think we all feel the same.
You summarized it beautifully.
Thank you. Great. Okay, so next order of business is the Special Education Summer Services. We spoke a little bit about this last week. After the meeting, I requested that Mr. Parentazzi provide a summary of how we would be handling any perceived conflict of interest. I do not think there's a conflict of interest because we're mitigating it. Mr. Parentazzi, do you want to just kind of provide the explanation of the mitigation?
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. First of all, I did some research. I thought I knew what I was doing, and it turned out that I sort of did. I wrote a memo to the chair of the Nahant School Committee dated June 18th when I explained that typically our special education program is run by our regular school year special educators. This year, our special education teacher was unavailable, so we posted the position. We had oral applications, but only one written application, and it was received from Ms. Janice Walwood. She is a licensed special education teacher with significant experience on many levels of special education in several school districts in Massachusetts. Since she was basically the only licensed candidate, and it is crucial that we have a licensed special educator because it all stems from the individual education plan. So we would be in violation of those plans if we had the world's best teacher who didn't have a special education license. So I hired Ms. Walwood, who is married to Mr. Andrews. So your policy says that any individual who's related to any administrator in the district or an administrator can't hire that person, nor can that administrator evaluate that person. So before the fact, I created a mitigation plan. Mr. Andrews had nothing to do with Ms. Walwood's hiring. Ms. Walwood was interviewed by the special education director and I. It was an easy decision because A, she had the license, and B, she was the only person who submitted a written application. And she is highly qualified and an outstanding educator. Ms. Connell and I will supervise and evaluate Ms. Walwood so that there is no conflict with your policy. So the mitigation was for the director of special education and the superintendent to both A, hire, and B, evaluate and supervise. And this person will work 4 days this summer. July 8th, 15th, 22nd, and 29th. This person will work with groups of 2 to 4 students who the special education director has created a schedule for, 7:30 a.m. to 12:30 p.m., and the special education teacher will have 4 hours of preparation time in order to get ready for that first day of school on the 8th of July. I have also attached for you, you've seen all this before because I sent it to you electronically. Mr. Andrews completed a disclosure of appearance of conflict of interest form from the State Ethics Commission. That's signed and dated June 20th. That's self-explanatory. And I have also included and sent to you previously the directions for filing the disclosure, where it clearly says that a non-elected public employee filed a disclosure with the appointing authority, the school committee obviously being the appointing authority, and therefore it's so filed.
Right. And so I spoke with the Ethics Commission to confirm what we should do with this, and if we are happy with the mitigation process, we file it and accept it. So I think that we have a plan, and it's very appropriate, and does anyone have any thoughts? No? In terms of accepting this mitigation plan, can we have a motion to do so? File it?
Motion to accept the mitigation plan regarding this position in the summer.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, and the chair votes aye. So that's all finished. Fantastic. And I think our students are lucky to be able to have this in the community. Care for them.
And Madam Chair, just to continue, if I may, very briefly.
Of course.
In our special education program, on those 4 days, the students will receive speech and language therapy, occupational therapy and physical therapy, and academic work. So there's 3 prongs to the students' days. And what happens during the course of the day is that the students rotate through those 3 placements. Okay? And there's never fewer than 2 students in a group and never more than 4. So it's really very individualized instruction.
Okay. Moving on to personnel matters. Mr. Parentozzi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So a couple of things have happened since we met last. The first is that Kristen Cahill, our .2 FTE STEM teacher, has resigned. Ms. Cahill has been with us 2 years, and she did a fine job, and we're sorry to see her go, but she got a full-time position. And that's going to be a pattern that you see here, because we are so small and we hire people for 1 day or 2 days. They oftentimes move to positions where it's a full benefit package and it's a 5-day-a-week position, which means they're, .2 FTE is very different than a 1.0 FTE in terms of salary. Ms. Cahill had 2 positions that she was cobbing together to make still less than a full FTE, and now she has a position in one school district, in one school that's full-time. So I congratulate her, and did so. Sorry to see her go. We'll miss her, but that's okay. That position is advertised and posted. In addition, that's basically the same thing that happened with Ms. McMahon, our registered behavioral therapist. Same thing. We gave her her first professional job. She now is working full-time elsewhere, and that job is posted. Just as a reminder, we never had a registered behavioral therapist till we hired Ms. McCann. We basically would send our students out. One more interpretation of the theory that it's always better to keep kids local and as close to their homes and to their friends and neighbors as possible. So that hopefully we will be able to fill that position.
Can you remind us how many hours per week we are hoping to fill that behavioral aid position? What is the FTE?
On which?
For the behavioral aid.
That's an hourly position, and that is completely dictated by the IEP process.
Okay.
So in the budget, we have 15 hours, I believe. But if there's a greater need or a lesser need, we adjust.
Okay.
Okay? That position is not covered by the Nahant Teachers Association contract, whereas the STEM teacher is. That's why it's expressed in different values.
Yeah.
Okay?
Do they need to be posted, like, internally within the town for a few weeks and then go out, or are they out there on school spring?
Once again, a really good question. The contract is mute regarding that. Most contracts are. Typically, the interpretation of the state labor organizations is that you can advertise and post at the same time as long as you don't hire before the posting date is up, which we never do. So it is both posted and advertised. Okay?
Right.
There's no delay. I have seen contracts that say there needs to be a 5-working day posting before an advertisement goes up. Our contracts don't have that. And really, frankly, it's not effective anyway, because as long as you don't hire, as long as it's open for everybody, what's the difference if it happens concurrently? So the other thing I have done is I have posted most of our stipended positions. They have been posted. The only ones we're still waiting for applications for is our garden club and our play, because we are going to wait on the play to see what the 5th and 6th graders, particularly the 6th graders, want to do. They meet with the leadership, and they have options. They can do a play, or they could do a America's Got Talent kind of talent show. You know, they can basically do whatever they want, as long as it's fun, and as long as everyone is treated with great dignity and respect. So I'm not posting that. The yearbook position has been filled. That's we only got one applicant from the staff. And then the middle school stipends are obviously filled by the 5th and 6th grade teachers. I mean, even though I post them, they're the middle school, you know. That stipend was created for those two people who have additional responsibilities over and above all the other grade levels. You know, move-up ceremony, those types of things. Okay. And other than that, I have been busy. I have written 18 appointment letters with salaries and contracts and mailed them all out so that we are ready to go. And 14 of the 18 people have already returned them. I heard from 2 of them today. I sent them a little gentle reminder, and they will be in within a week. And the other 2 are really specialists that are hired by the special education department that really don't have any work until, you know, into the school year. So, and they've been with us for a couple of years, so I'm not worried about that. But I will send them a reminder. And then we will be pretty solidly staffed. We do have a couple of vacancies. We have the .2 STEM position. We have the registered behavioral therapist, and we may in fact have a teaching position, but that's not been determined yet.
Okay. Great, thank you for that update.
You're very welcome.
So next on the agenda is business from the committee, and we don't really have anything, but I wanted to bring something up, and I wasn't sure whether I should bring it up under new business or here. I was thinking that we have limited participation at these meetings from the community. Look at it all.
Thank you those who are watching that.
On YouTube tonight, or maybe.
All
Right.
of our spouses. Yeah.
And that I was brainstorming with myself, I guess you could say, on how to get feedback from the community, from our stakeholders, which really are, so I'm not talking about the greater community, but really parents and teachers, you know, who we serve, I think. I guess we serve, of course, we serve the students, but, you know, I'm not going there right now. So in thinking about how can we get feedback on, you know, where our school system, our district can improve, what we're doing well, that we should capitalize on, so forth. So I did a little research, and other districts, school committees send out surveys. So I would like to propose that we send out a survey. Kind of need to decide how to send it out, but I think first I wanted to just bring up concept. So if you want to pass that down, I put my brainstorm on paper. I apologize if there's typos and spelling edits. I did it right at the end of the day today. But, so like I said, you know, my idea would be to gather feedback, assess impressions of our strengths and areas for improvement, and then take those and think about what we can do and possibly incorporate them into the school improvement plan. Who? I'm thinking parents, teachers, and staff. How? I was thinking I use SurveyMonkey a lot at work for different things. And it's anonymous and can easily be done by sending a link. It's also free. I mean, you can pay and get a nice boosted version, but the free version is very fine. And just putting out questions, with like a Likert scale, maybe some multiple choice and options for comments. And then I put down here sort of themes and ideas of what I thought would be good, based on kind of what I've seen other schools do. So I think communication, climate, sort of social growth, and academics, and then kind of specifics about arts and physical education. And so I just wonder what people think about it. I don't want us to all kind of like nitpick these questions tonight, but I thought perhaps everybody could go home and nitpick them, and there's way too many on here right now. I mean, I think when I think of a survey, I think if you want people to do it, you need to be able to do it in 5 minutes. You say 10 minutes. I say 5 because, what?
Madam Chair, research shows in the education field, when you're communicating with parents and guardians, you ask them for 10 responses.
Yep, I was
And
gonna say 12.
anything over 10, you diminish the return.
Right. I remember a survey class I took years ago. It was like 12 was this magic number.
Yeah.
We went over 12, and
Yeah, well, we've lost some of our concentration since then.
yeah, this was a long time ago, that class, so.
Patty, I think it's a great idea. I would love to send out a survey and get general opinions from the general audience, about what we are doing well and what we could improve on. I think it's fantastic. And then when you propose, for our students going into grades 1 through 6, are you thinking about that because we don't really want to include the preschool since it's not part of the
I thought like when you're asking about academics
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
things, it just.
Exactly.
But like I said, this was sort of, I've been thinking about it, and I put it on paper today, and I thought going 1 through 6, I mean, I think, if we gather good knowledge and we, this works, we could even think about like, are there issues? I know in the past there was communication with Swampscott and things, we could look into soliciting
different ways.
feedback regarding that, but I don't want to take too much on at once,
I really like this idea. In fact, I'm not sure if Mr. Pierantozzi was with us when we entertained the idea a handful of years back. When we had a mass exodus of students out of the Johnson School, we entertained the idea of shaping some sort of a survey to stop the bleeding, to find out, to get to the parents and guardians and find out why their choice was we had some families that moved away, and they noted that they were moving because of the school. And then we had others that were pulling their students out, sending them to private. So we entertained the idea. Ms. McKinnon at the time and I were a subcommittee looking at a survey, if I remember correctly. I probably have my notes somewhere on it. And so we were trying to design, and we never got it off the ground, but I like the idea of reaching out. If you can draw in the response, if you can find a way to make it brief, make it worth people's while, because like I've always said, which I'm repeating after you, time is our greatest resource, and so that's how these people feel. They're very, very busy, but I think that we could potentially draw in a wealth of information if you could pull it off and find a way. And we could even think about shaping it, because, I mean, we really do. We serve more than just the Johnson School community. We serve the district. So, I mean, being a parent of a student who's going into the 8th grade over at Swampscott, I find that I really would like to know what all of the parents and guardians of the high school students and the middle school students are thinking, especially because we're going to be going into renegotiating a contract with Swampscott. And we have our memorandum of agreement with them, and if there are things that people feel they're not being communicated with properly, like the bus schedule or activities over at Swampscott, the clubs that are offered at Swampscott, I feel like it is kind of encompasses us as a committee to look at what those folks are feeling as well. So maybe we could shape something out for the preschool, shape something out for the other students at Johnson School, shape something out for the district-wide students over in Swampscott.
Yeah, no, I like that idea, and I think separate surveys though, because I think it
Yes.
gets muddled.
Yes.
So
Absolutely. Yes.
one for here, and I mean, I think another one for 7th. Yeah, kids going
Yes.
7th to 12th.
And if, whether it was a paper-mailed survey or an emailed survey, I wouldn't think that it would be that difficult. I mean, I've set up large email chains that you send out blind CC to folks, and if you had the emails of the folks from, you know, the Swampscott students, emails from the preschool students separated, or the mailing, it could be figured out.
Survey tools can do it too, so if you ask them what grade their class or their students in, it can actually change the questions
And it'll
based on that.
filter
Right,
it out.
right. I mean, that's if we go with the free Survey Monkey, you can't, but
You can do it with Google too.
that's true, yeah. What I was thinking was, you know, maybe we could have Ms. Katzos send it out. I don't know if that's a possibility, but somebody, you know.
Who has access to all these?
Right, like, I can imagine myself setting up the survey and having access to the survey and the results, sending her the link and saying, please send this out, where it would be, I would have access to the results. And my, just going along that thought would be that perhaps timeline, you know, everybody looks at the questions, perhaps we come up with some other separate ones for the higher grades.
Even
And
start with
discuss it in July and try to do it in August and present it, you know, summarize it for the fall sometime.
Sure. Madam Chair, I think one recurring thought always comes into my mind when closed surveys are discussed, and that's Sears and Roebuck. When Sears and Roebuck sent out their satisfaction surveys, they always got a response of in a general neighborhood of 85 to 95% success, because they only gave their surveys to Sears and Roebuck customers. So there's actually three groups of people, if we're going to do this, that we need to figure out how to get to. One is the pre-K through 6 parents and guardians, easy. Students register, we have an email for everybody. Mr. Andrews sends out emails to them on a regular basis, as does the office. The second group, which probably isn't much harder, is the 7 through 12 students in Swampscott or elsewhere. Because those students are so old, once they hear about it, they're going to love it to give input. And the third group is a little more difficult and but equally valuable, in my opinion, and that's the parents and guardians and students who either never went to our school district for some reason, or did for a brief period of time and left for some reason. And that's that third group, and they're the ones that in my opinion, having done surveys of all kinds for years, they're the ones that oftentimes give you the most thought-provoking responses. So if we could have a Survey Monkey that was three arms, you know, if you're a parent of a 1 to 6, go this way. If you're the parent of 7 to 12, go this way. And if you're the parent of a student, if you live in Nahant but send your child to a out-of-district parochial school, private school, you could do this one.
Charter school, anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I typed here was, and not returning students, because I assumed that we have the email addresses of students who have left in the last year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think to make it successful, we need to be realistic in what
Yep.
we can do and not overshoot and then dilute.
Well, the way researchers do it is the ones that you can get to, you get to, and the others you publicize greatly how they can get to you. So we post the survey in some way, and we tell everybody in the Nahant there's a survey posted.
Right. See, this is where I want to be careful, though. I want the people, just being a researcher.
Yeah, you know.
I think we want to target it so that we're not opening it up to the whole community, but parents, guardians of children within our school. So that's where, you know, I was thinking about how do we get it to them. And I like Lori's idea of, you know, we represent the district, so parents and students of children in the district. And I definitely think we should try to get people who have been in the district. I think going to people who never chose the district that's a completely different set of people, and would take, you know, different questions, like a very different survey than people who have left, you know.
Yeah, the, Madam Chair, also, you know, the other way to do it is to time stretch it. Instead of doing it all at once, you could choose to do pre-K 6 parents and guardians first. I mean, there are clients and clientele.
Right.
And then when that's done, then you can maybe go to the 712. And then when that's done, just put one on the internet and, you know, give people a checkbox. You know, no parents, you know, I used to have kids, you know, and get a more general, but, you know, delay it so it's not this massive set of data.
Right, I mean, we want it to be realistic, we want to get it done.
Yeah.
We all,
But I think it's a great idea.
For some of the people that do have students that they send elsewhere, that would be interesting responses, because we've seen over the last couple of years, some of the students returning to school to go over in Swampscott, who had never been to the Johnson School or were in the Johnson School in the very beginning grades and then moved out for a period. But that's interesting to us for a number of reasons, but that could change, you know, the flow, the way we're going to have increased numbers of the kids. Someone may unexpectedly, you know, they've been in private school and then now, you know, let's say, for instance, Tower students who complete 8th grade at Tower, and you might expect that they will go continue a private education, but then they come to Swampscott, so we could find out.
maybe have a question on the lower grade survey and the upper grade survey saying, if you went to another school prior, why did you choose Johnson? If you went to Johnson, or why did you choose to go back to Swampscott? If you went to Johnson, or your child went to Johnson and now doesn't, why? You know, try to get both sides of that somehow. You know, I mean, the hardest thing about doing surveys is asking the question in the right way to get the, you know,
The check.
no, just so that everybody understands what's being asked, not, because there's always interpretation, so, you know, it's,
Well, especially with SurveyMonkey, what we want is, we want a definitive answer that's an option of 1 to X, so we don't have a whole bunch of comments that have to be collated
exactly, right.
and
like-
interpreted.
Yeah, I wrote here Likert scales and a few options for comments, because I think comments, you know, you can learn a lot that way too.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, objective and subjective. So, what if everybody takes this home, comes back July 9th with crossouts or stars of what questions they think are important? Well, first off, let me just check. Is everybody game for this? Do we need to vote?
I'm not a survey person. I get 15 of them a year. I only fill them out when I have to. If it's part of my job and it's required, I fill them out. If it's not part of my job, I haven't filled out a survey. Because in education, we get buried with them.
What about
I
if it
literally
has
get
to do
15
with your
20
child?
pounds.
Your child's education?
What if there's a chance for your child or for you, by answering this survey, to win your child's class?
I just see so many of them. I blank them out. I literally seen so many surveys, I blank them out. And I don't think I'm the only person that thinks that way. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think we are gonna get some non-responders.
If the
That's-
questions
yeah.
are really,
If we didn't get
questions are worded
non-responders,
correctly,
then I would wonder that there was something very wrong. I mean,
if you get a 20% yield, that's pretty good.
right, yeah, yeah, no, it's very
You
true.
know, I'm being truthful, it's just my opinion.
Well, Mr. Andrews, you did a survey regarding
Lunch.
lunch or
Oh,
meals.
sure, I think that the easy,
Did you receive a pretty large response? I think we may have discussed it, and I can't recall, but
I remember that.
I don't recall the rate of response, but I felt like it was representative of the student body and of the school body. I think the easy part is going to be sending it out. I think the hard part will be making the questions and trying to determine what you want to accomplish, I guess. What's the main primary objective?
Would it be helpful to have a subcommittee to do this? I mean, we can't discuss in between meetings, you know, this kind of a topic. So to get the work done in a timely manner, would it be wise to have a subcommittee of 2 members so that we're not a majority to work on it like you did before? I imagine that was the...
that's exactly what we did. Carrie and I met in between, and then we circled back to the group. And like I said, we never got the survey off the ground for a few different reasons, and large in part because time. You know, we ran out of time. But I like the idea of the survey. I don't know what kind of response we would get. I would be willing to put a bit of time into to work on it, the logistics of it. But I do agree with you. I get a million surveys at
Tom
work,
asked
and
me
I
if it was
delete them
about
all.
my child. If there was a survey about my
yeah.
child, if I had an
Yeah.
issue with my child, I'd call the school. I wouldn't worry about the survey. I'd be direct.
I think there are a lot of people who don't, though, right? And
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm the only one who feels that way, but
but you're right. You're not alone, I'm sure.
The thing about the survey that is appealing is this anonymous piece, because for
Yeah.
those who feel as though they don't really want to, especially in such a small school where it's very difficult to speak your mind and not be pegged as that person who had this or that thought, I think the idea of being able to really speak your mind and be heard on an anonymous platform could be appealing to some. So it would be interesting to see the responses we got. And
Right, I find that oftentimes we think we know things, and then we don't. Well, and I say that we in general, not us, but just humans in general, because, like you said, people hold things back. So like I said, I did a little research. If you look online, Brookline Public Schools does it every so often, and they actually have it up on the web, their results. And I pulled questions, like I looked and said, oh, that's an interesting, question, and kind of adapted them a little bit. But
I'd like to motion for Patty to be on the committee.
I would like to be on the
Yeah, I
committee.
think there should be a subcommittee. I don't think there's any way to get this done during
Right.
normal activities.
Would anyone else like to be on a subcommittee?
I think Lori wanted to.
I would be happy to, unless somebody really wanted to, take part in it. But
I think Mike wanted to.
I don't think this is a committee.
I don't think you did.
I'm not really doing any traveling this summer, and I would be happy to work with Patty if you would like that, Madam Chair.
I would love that, thank you. Great. So, I do think it's good if everybody wants to submit their input, though, ahead of time. So,
Should we all just write to you?
if you want to just write to me, I can send this electronically.
We could all take this
Well,
home. and
everybody's
we
got
could
the
just-
paper, you can scratch on it. And,
We could each all take this home since you gave it to us here at a meeting. We could individually respond just to you with our thoughts.
I think so, that's perfect, because we'll bring it back to the committee.
Yes.
Can we
What are
do
you
that?
thinking?
Can we do that? I don't,
Not go against the meeting.
Or do we have to
Just bring them back to the next
bring
meeting.
it back to the table on July 9th,
Just bring them
rather?
back to the next meeting. In the
And
meantime,
then the
you're doing
subcommittee
work.
breaks off and takes that information
That
back.
would go against open meeting.
Yeah.
if you do
right,
that.
right, no,
think
I'm
so.
trying to think what.
Too many of us
processes.
responding to one person. Okay.
Ninth isn't that far
Yeah,
off.
Madam Chair, the open meeting law requires one of two things to occur. Number one, that people bring things back to the table for debate, discussion, and determination without any private exchange. Or number two, they go to the input goes to yourself or a third party like Ms. Katzos or myself. It gets summarized and then it comes here
Right.
in a summary form.
Can it come back to me?
Yes.
Input, and I can summarize it. So, why don't we do that? People
Okay.
send me, everybody's got it on paper. I mean, and I don't need things typed up, so feel free to cross off and take a picture and scan it and send it that way, you know, make it easy. And then,
When do you want them back?
I think prior to the next meeting would be
July 9th.
July 9th, would be fantastic. I
So
don't know,
July
Lori, if you would like to try to meet prior to then?
July 5th?
July, we have
I
4th of
I
July.
think I can,
July 4th.
I think I can.
That's next
yes,
Wednesday.
I can make that work.
So, Mr. Parentozzi, can you clarify, in terms of open meeting law, we have not had any subcommittees since I have been on this committee. How does it work with a subcommittee?
A subcommittee is a subset of the full committee. It cannot have a quorum, therefore this committee is limited to 2 members because 3 would be a quorum and therefore have all of the authority of the full committee.
Understood.
The subcommittee reports to the full committee and does not, in fact, make any determinations on its own. One of the most common real problems that elected bodies have is that they do something very simple. They have a subcommittee that doesn't have a quorum, and then other people go to the meeting. That makes it a quorum.
Meet 'em.
So when you and Ms. Valentine meet, nobody, no other of the 3 members of the elected body can be in attendance, because even though they're not listed as a subcommittee, it is in fact a quorum.
Right, that's understood, yeah. Sure. So we will not meet at the beach on a beautiful day, because we'll probably run
But
into
I can come.
others. Okay, so
And then
thank
we'll-
you for considering it, I appreciate it. Welcome. Is there any other business from the committee? Okay, so if we can adjourn, can we have a motion to adjourn? And to move into executive session to review minutes?
I'll make a motion to adjourn into executive session for proposing, I can't see with the glare. And approving minutes not to reconvene in open session.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye. Thank you very much. And I want to say thank you to Bradley for
Thanks, Brad.
videotaping this. It will be on YouTube.